All right, hey, greetings everybody. Excited to have our show tonight. Excited to have the fabulous Christine Huber here to join us tonight and share some of your brilliance with all of us. So we're excited about that, and I'm happy to have the guests on. College, there are things going on now in the world of college every single day. Announcements are being made almost every passing hour. So it's exciting to talk about what's going on in the world of college. It's also a little bit scary. It's worrisome. All these things. We have all of these emotions within ourselves when we're talking about the world of college. And then when we start thinking about what's happening in the world of college sports, hey, we are all sports lovers. So we want sports, but these days sports are really hard to do in any kind of large groups. So we're going to talk more about that shortly. And so let's get started here. All right. So I'm Hanson, National College Advisor, author of the book, The Inside Secrets to Playing College Sports, What Every Mom and Dad Must Know. Also, Dissecting the Big Business of College. Also, I've been featured many times in these national journals. I'm a speaker. I've spoken in front of 45 or 50,000 people over the years. And I am a saver. I am a saver of college costs. I've saved people tens of thousands of dollars over the years in college costs. All right, so we do have more guests coming on, and if I can just ask everybody to mute themselves, that'd be great. And unless you want your face in the video, you might want to turn off the audio. We are recording, so we'll go from here. All right. Now, I'm not Christine Huber, but we have Christine Huber here. So, Christine, I'm going to pop up a couple of little things about you, and feel free to take it from there.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I've been running #1 soccer camps since 1996. I've been involved with the company, and Dr. Joe Matnick, as you may know him from Dr. Joe on Fox Sports, he was my college coach, which is how I kind of started getting involved in that. Go next one. No.
University of New Haven Hall of Fame. Tell us about it, Christine.
I'm originally from Maine, but got brought down to play soccer and basketball actually at UNH. And the first years I was allowed to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, I did. I still have a lot of close ties there. I try to help out the teams, and right now I'm working with, I'm on a sports advisory committee. We're about to make the jump from Division II to Division I. So I'm working with the university on that.
General manager of the fabulous arena.
CFC Arena's in Hamden, and that's one of the fields right there. And then we have our brand new $5 million facility in Bethany called CFC Park, which has indoor fields and outdoor fields, whereas CFC Arena is just indoors.
I coach about the federation license.
Yeah, so I coached for many years, all different levels of college, high school, club, you name it. So I have my U.S. Soccer D license, which I got, and many other state certifications as well.
And tell us about this, ESPN. Come on.
Yeah, this has been great. I don't want to say it fell in my lap, but it basically fell in my lap. It's been awesome. I did all the Yale women's soccer games last year. I did the Yale men's basketball. I did the Yale women's basketball. I did the NEC women's soccer semifinals. And then a few of our basketball games got bumped to Nesson as well. So it's great. Like all these things that I do are completely surrounded and engulfed in soccer. And the soccer world is a very, very small world, which is why I love doing the showcases, because I am literally just talking to my friends about players, talking to them about soccer. And even for, tonight's Zoom call, I was just talking to all different levels, collegiate levels all throughout the country. So it's a good excuse to catch up with some of my friends.
Well, Christine, ever since I've known you, you are just all about sports. And now this shows everything. You're a director, you're a general manager, you're a coach, you're a commentator. Christine, you do it all. It is great to partner with you tonight in this wonderful event. So, all right, let's get rolling here. Quick little agenda for everybody. We're going to talk about the college situation and try to inspire you to take action. This is a two-part class. It's going to take about 1 hour. And we have part one, in which I will be talking about college in the COVID-19 era. And then we're going to have part two, and we're going to be talking about sports, and we'll be featuring Christine for this part. All right, let's get rolling here. The reality check. College is increasingly less accessible and less affordable to mainstream America. This has been a trend for 30 years, but that's the reality. Another reality, parents are increasingly unhappy right now with colleges. They have not received a refund from the spring semester outside of room and board, of course, but not for tuition. And colleges are not talking about reductions in the tuition for online studies in the fall. So parents are becoming increasingly unhappy. Colleges are increasingly concerned every day we get closer to the start of the fall semester. Their concern level is rising. They're concerned about an anticipated no-show rate of its student body. The student experience is a diminished experience as we talk. It was diminished in the spring when all the kids got sent home. It's going to be diminished further in the fall. The experience is just being highly compromised right now. And, let's think about this and. It's a big and, right? Most colleges are not in the business of creating jobs. So you can take a look at this nice little cartoon here. Why not? Why are they not in the business of creating jobs? Because they haven't had to. Their market has been driven for 20 years, solid 20 years, maybe we could say 30 or 40 years, but it's been driven specifically for the last 20 years by student appeal. Okay, we have new people coming on, but if you could please mute yourself, it'd be helpful to us all. Okay, and a quick note also, we have a chat box, and feel free to type in any questions that you might have. Okay, so the market has been driven by student appeal. The appeal of fabulous sports facilities, of beautiful, luxurious dorm rooms, of beautiful campuses, of gourmet cafeterias. So it's been driven by student appeal over that of student outcome. "20 years in the making." Go back to the Great Recession of 2007, 8, and 9. Prices have doubled. Private colleges, there are several private colleges that cost $80,000 or more this year. They are moving towards $125,000 in about 5, 6, or 7 years' time. Some colleges will hit $100,000 in 3 years' time. State universities, right now costing $30,000 in-state, $50,000 out-of-state, are moving towards $50,000 for in-state and $80,000 for out-of-state residents. State universities in 3, 4, 5 years could cost $50,000 for in-state residents. Okay, with our guests, if you can please mute yourself, that would be helpful to all of us. Thank you. Okay, the national average time it takes to graduate in a 4-year degree, Christine, you've probably heard me say this a few times, 5.5 years. the national average time it takes to graduate in a four-year degree. The national average percentage of students graduating in 4 years is right around 40%. Now, what's the real job placement rate? It's not what they tell you in the information sessions. I can promise you that it's far less than the 80 or 90% that they tell you in the information sessions. And financial aid, which has typically been a form of aid that you don't have to pay back, is now being replaced by parent loans, and the colleges are calling it financial aid. That is faking out the people. That is being deceptive, if you ask my opinion. Now, we like to hear from insiders. I've heard from several people working inside Harvard, for example. Scott Galloway, he's a fairly well-known NYU professor in business marketing. He's featured often on CNN and Fox News and stations like that. I love listening to him talk. He just says some profound things. I have a few of those to share with you right now. If we think about this, the academic world has raised prices faster than healthcare. And I heard him say at the same time, if you were to walk into a classroom today, it wouldn't really look, smell, or feel much different than 40 years ago.
Nope.
Now, he talks about Ivy Leagues, and he's critical about the Ivy Leagues. He says they're more spectacle than historic. They make up just 1/2 of the students. He calls them luxury brands. Their benefit comes from creating artificial scarcity. But during this COVID crisis and coming out of it, they will maintain their pricing power and they will double down on their exclusivity. I completely agree with that. Now, this is profound. Second-tier colleges are to education what department stores are to retail. That's a scary thought. And he says they are about to begin a death march. So more on that later. And in the end, this is the real question we all have to ask, all of us. What is the certification or the education and the diminished experience worth? Okay. Hey, we still have a few people coming in. Please mute yourself. We're getting a little bit of background interference here, so please mute yourself. Thank you. Now, sending students home exposed some realities of college along with their motives. It put the question out there to all the parents who had just gotten done 2 months earlier sending in a big check. Is this what we're paying so much money for? And here it is 4 months later. It's unleashed a whole new market attitude of those people who are paying, the customers, the parents. Okay, please, we have some interference going on here. So please mute yourself. Okay. All right. Meanwhile, what's being taken away? Student appeal is being taken away right now. Sports fields and sports activities is being taken away. The luxurious dorms, people can stay in them, but they're assigning one to a room. And in many cases, if they leave the room, they have to wear a mask. Classrooms, not going to have crowded classrooms anymore. The luxurious gourmet cafeterias, forget those. Students are going to have to pre-order their meals. And just having a college campus and walking around the campus, which was normal 6 months ago, is not going to happen for a while. That's out. That leaves student outcome. So just think about that. That leaves student outcome as being the most important thing right now being thought of by the parents. So we're at a crossroads, right? We're at a crossroads. Colleges are desperately needing to fill seats. That's how they get paid. They must start the semester with live people. They must. If they can start the semester for 1 or 2 days or a week or 2 weeks, they will get their hook into the money. So that's what's important to colleges right now. Get the semester started with some live bodies on campus. Parents, they're frustrated. They're unwilling to pay the full price for this diminished experience. Parents are becoming unwilling to bankrupt themselves over college costs. And I think people are tired of the constant rhetoric. But what have we heard for the last 4 months? We've heard a continuation of the rhetoric. That's been the last 4 months. The last week or two, it's coming to an end. We're getting announcements every day. The reality surfaces. Christine, you got an announcement at 5:30 tonight, right?
Yeah, NE10 just canceled all their fall sports. So
Yeah, can you tell everybody what conference that is, please?
Northeast 10. So that's the Division II conference up here in New England and New York.
Yeah, how many colleges? Like 16 in that conference?
Yeah, I think it's now maybe 14. I think they have from St. Anselm's to Franklin Pierce to Southern New Hampshire, Southern Connecticut, University of New Haven,
Pace, St. Thomas Aquinas, all those. Maybe Malloy, but anyway, that's how many sports, how many athletes and coaches does that affect?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Hundreds, right?
Yep.
Maybe thousands? Maybe a couple hundred coaches, maybe a few thousand athletes, just by that one announcement.
Yep.
So the reality is surfacing. There's no more nice sound bites coming out, no more rhetoric. We're getting announcements. When colleges like Brown and Stanford cancel sports, Brown with $5 billion in their endowment fund, Stanford with $30 billion in their endowment fund. When colleges like that are canceling sports, anybody can cancel them.
And add Dartmouth to the list. They just cut a bunch of their sports, and they're also releasing their golf course as well.
Oh, so it's just getting started. Colleges are rolling out a hybrid live and online study program. That's the reality. Many colleges are starting to announce that all their classes will be online. No college students, like USC announced a couple weeks ago, no students on campus. And several colleges have announced that of late. Now, this was news a couple weeks ago, but we're going to hear a lot of this coming up. This is a collaboration of 4 colleges to turn one college into a university park. So what it does, it will allow colleges to sustain themselves better. University of Bridgeport cannot go on any longer financially on their own, so they've partnered with 3 other colleges to create a new type of entity. It's not exactly a college, is it, Christine? It's really a college park that offers students college studies. And so what we're seeing here, everybody, is it's the new delivery of college education, and the new delivery of the experience is taking shape right in front of us. We're not seeing this now and going back to the way it was 6 months ago, moms and dads. This is where we're at, and this is where we're going. So I'm going to introduce the New Look College to you. New Look College is going to have a hybrid approach. The wealthy colleges, those with endowments of $5 billion plus, will have a tremendous leveraging advantage in how they build the technology to deliver quality online studies. Non-essential, we came across this term a few months ago. Essential, non-essential. Essential, you go to work. Non-essential, you stay home, right? Well, now we have to start thinking about what's essential and what's non-essential on a college campus. That's what they're going to be considering. Activities, whether they're sports or classes, things are getting trimmed. Some colleges are going to shutter. Don't be surprised if you hear of 500, 600 or 700 colleges shuttering over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. Many of them will be colleges that you've never heard of before. But right now, the student population of colleges has decreased probably 20% over the last 10 years and continues to decrease a little bit every year. So there are just not enough college students right now to fill all the colleges. So with the crisis in place right now and kids staying home and tuition not being received by these colleges, we're going to see many of them shutter. The market, which are the parents, that's us, will take a more assertive interest with an approach centered on outcomes, not student appeal, but student outcomes. That's going to be our focus for the next 5 or 10 years. That's what I think. So just the whole idea of the last 20 years of pursuing and paying for this glamour of college with its rite of passage is being replaced by pursuing and paying for real value and certain outcomes. That's what I think this whole college tilt is going to result in over the next 5 years. So I think there's going to be 2 types of colleges. One will be the elite, the top tier colleges, the Ivy League colleges, NESCAC colleges, and other of the colleges in the elite colleges like the Vanderbilts and schools like that. They will continue to appeal to the student, but appease the parent. That's a big difference. They're going to maintain their glorified and pristine image with their rankings remaining a top priority. They will specifically, and they always have, by the way, targeted wealthy families. Why? Because wealthy families support their business initiatives. They will always proclaim the value of their certifications, the value of having the diploma hanging on your wall for the next 40 or 50 years. And that's the key for them to preserve their academic enterprise. They will focus on the student experience, which is a grand experience. I'm not being critical of the colleges here. It is a grand student experience. But they're more focused on the experience than the outcome. That's okay. That's just the way it is. Cost will hit $100,000 in 3 years' time. And it'll be accessible and affordable, maybe the top 5% of income earners, maybe only the top 2 or 3%. There's a big market for that. So the market will keep fueling all the needs of these elite colleges. Investment in technology is going to lead the way, and the online capability will pave their way to their own growth. Now, all other colleges, all others, hundreds of others, are going to have to appeal to the new buyer, the parent. They're going to have to attend to the market demands of us, the parents, who are writing out the checks. Their brand will be based on delivering results, not certifications, but jobs. They will have to identify with the real purpose and align themselves with it. They will need to streamline cost, deliver education at a lower cost, and time. College doesn't have to take 4, 5, or 6 years. There are certain elements to college or an education or training that maybe can be done in 2 years or 3 years. So it becomes more affordable and more accessible to everybody. These middle tier colleges will be centered on meeting the needs of regional employers, and their job is to deliver qualified students to the employers. There's going to be a focus on expedited, skills-based training over that of the lengthy education. They're going to combine resources amongst colleges and businesses, and they need to do this to improve their own financial sustainability. And in the end, Christine, I think in the next 5 years, you're going to see a lot of colleges become a job resource center. That's going to be their brand. Their job is to promote contemporary, progressive, mindful thinking. There's a big need for this. Kids want to get to work. They don't want to wait 4 or 5 years to get a job. And the colleges there needs to be a group of colleges that can fulfill that need. So now we're going to shift a little bit. And we're going to think about, where do sports fit in? And again, we're all lovers of sports. But there's the reality of what's going on these days, just like the announcement you just mentioned, Christine. So Christine is, she's so involved in the world of sports, college sports, that she keeps her hand on the heartbeat of everything going on around the country when it comes to sports. She's a soccer expert, but she knows college sports. So, Christine, I have a few questions, and I just put them up on the screen so everybody can see, what we're going to talk about. But when we think about essential or non-essential activities, where does sports fit in? Are sports on a college campus essential or non-essential? How do you feel about that?
I mean, as a former college athlete, I'm going to say it's essential. If maybe I'm the president and I'm looking at the bottom line and need to cut the fat, then maybe, as we've seen from Dartmouth and Stanford, they feel that it's not. The big thing is, and we talked about this, is the staffing, the coaches. What are you doing with all these coaches? And right now, from everybody I talked to throughout the country during this entire quarantine, they have basically become admissions counselors. Their athletic department, their presidents, they want them to bring in the athletes, and they want them to bring them into school. And again, to make that healthy, sound mind, body of the college experience.
That is a real dilemma. You just mentioned cutting fall sports out of a conference of 15 or 16 colleges or so. Now, I have to imagine that includes about 15 sports for each college, 10 or 15 sports for each college, 15 colleges. Geez, that's a couple of hundred sports teams, 2 or 3 coaches on each team. That move actually affects about 500 or 600 coaches that are making a living doing this. And it also affects probably 5,000 student athletes. So what happens to them?
Well, I think the big thing, and right now the NE10 was the one announced just fall sports as of right now, or they're not going to compete within the NE10 until, December 31st. The Ivy League said January 1st. And I think we're going to start to see that domino effect across the country. For these coaches, again, they're still going to be involved with those student athletes. They still want them on campus if they're doing a hybrid model. And I believe for most of these conferences, they're still going to be able to train and do group things. I think it's the travel that's the issue with the intercollegiate sports in the fall. We don't know what's going to happen. You have 20 kids on a bus, 20 student athletes. Where are they stopping? Are they stopping at the rest stop? They're going to McDonald's. And then maybe they're going to a school that's not testing and not having the same safety procedures as your own school. So I feel like each school is, they want their players back, but they're going to have their own bubble on their campus, and they don't really want to travel outside their bubble.
Do you see, Christine, being a little bit of a sports fan, watching college basketball over the years, it amazes me when I see that there's going to be a holiday tournament in Hawaii. and you wind up with, I don't know, 8 or 10 or 16 teams flying to Hawaii to play in a basketball tournament over the New Year's holiday. Do you ever see that happen again?
I mean, maybe down the line. It's not going to happen this winter, that's for sure. We're not going to have, the preseason NIT tip-off at Madison Square Garden. Like none of those. I don't even know if there's going to be enough basketball teams to compete in December. But again, those student athletes will be in. They'll probably be training if all goes somewhat well, but they're going to stay within their bubble.
So do you see any seasons? You've mentioned the fall season. You mentioned to me earlier today about the winter season sports might get delayed. So we're not even talking about the spring sports. But do you see in the next school year, do you see any college sports being played?
I mean, I would love for it to happen, but there needs to be things done, on the national level, and we obviously need to get the numbers down and kind of get the whole coronavirus under control, where we're ahead of it instead of chasing it.
Yeah. But colleges are chasing tuition fees right now. So if they're chasing tuition fees, how will they justify spending any money on college sports?
Well, they're still going to be bringing in, we hope, students. And again, if it's a hybrid model, you're still going to have the students on campus.
Okay, so share that, Christine, because I have spoken about that often over the years. Most people don't realize the income that a sports team brings into the college.
Correct, yeah. So I think what we'll see is we're going to see some colleges, and this was kind of already happening anyway, that they're going to require soccer, for example, instead of having a roster of 18 or 20, they're now going to have a roster of 28, 30, maybe even 32 kids on one soccer team. And that, in that case, you only have X amount of scholarships, depending on what conference you're in or Division III. But if that's 30, if you're in Division III, that's 30 paying kids. That's a lot of money.
I always told athletes over the years, if a college coach says, I'll offer you a position on my team, I'll offer you a roster spot, but I don't have any scholarship money for you. You're going to be a full tuition paying student athlete. That is a way to bury a kid's career because the coach wants the money to come in to help fund the program without necessarily having intention for the athlete to participate.
Well, that's not really the coach's decision. That's more of the athletic department and coming from the president on if there's any mandates on a roster size.
Okay, good. All right, good. Let's keep this going. So let's think about the future of college sports. And we know that there's a big difference between the revenue sports, let's just say Penn State football, University of Texas football, these programs, University of Michigan, Ohio State, they're all bringing in 150 to 200 million dollars depending on how you count the money, but it's tens of millions of dollars. And we do know that those schools use that money to fund the other sports programs, but the reality of it is most colleges across the country do not have any revenue sports. So what's going to happen to these colleges, maybe D3s or the small Division 1s that don't have non-revenue sports?
Yeah, I think, well, we've already seen it. We've already seen the budget cuts. We've already seen the coaches being furloughed, maybe even laid off. We talked about it earlier. A lot of times, in men's basketball, Duke Blue Devils, obviously a very good men's basketball team, and they pay a lower Division I team a lot of money to come into Cameron Indoor Stadium and play them. They're not going to see that. That lower Division I that needs that money, that needs that 100,000 to operate, they're not getting it this year, and that's a big blow to some of these programs.
How do you feel about the idea that Notre Dame might not, their football team won't have anybody to play because nobody's playing non-conference games?
And for a while, with the NBC television rights, Notre Dame, they stayed independent. They decided not to go in a football conference. And, they're probably one of the few major revenue generating college football teams in the country. And now, with everyone canceling football or playing conference only, they may not have opponents to play at all.
It looks like they won't have any games to play. Maybe nobody else does either, but at least for now, they're being singled out as being left out of the mix.
Yep.
All right, so over the years, I haven't particularly been a big fan of the NCAA, but I love college sports, and I think my son was a full tuition scholarship Division I baseball player, and so I was a beneficiary of the system. But I've never been a big fan of the NCAA. I've never really felt that they ruled in favor of the athletes. It always seemed like they ruled in favor of themselves. So we do know, Christine, colleges pay a lot of money to be part of the NCAA, right?
Yep.
Tens and tens of thousands of dollars go into the NCAA from every college, probably several hundred thousand from every college, right?
Correct.
Each year goes into the NCAA to be part of that organization. What value will they bring going forward?
I think there's going to be a lot of questions about the NCAA, and those questions already came up before we went into quarantine, before COVID. Honestly, I could see the Power Five conferences. I could see them kind of forming a bond and almost forming a new organization.
So the Power Five conferences, so everybody knows, they're the big conferences: the Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC, the Pac-10, and also probably the one in the conference with Texas and Oklahoma, whatever the name of that conference is. What's the name of that conference? Who can help me out here with that name of that conference? It's not the Southwest Conference, right? But anyway, that's one of the big conferences, obviously. Those are the five power conferences. They're the ones, there's five conferences with probably 60 sports teams in there. They're all playing basketball, they're all playing football, and they're all making a lot of money. And outside of those five conferences, there's not a lot of revenue being generated in the other conferences, right?
Right. I'm sure the NCAA does use a little bit of a trickle-down theory where obviously March Madness is probably one of their biggest revenue-generating tournaments, probably out of all the sports. And that money is then trickled down to support, Division II championships, Division III championships, flying those teams to the place they have to be.
Now, do you see, when Brown makes the announcement they're cutting 11 sports teams, they go, oh, we're going to convert them into clubs. And I hear parents saying to me often, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, they can just play in the club team. Tell me what you think about clubs at the college level.
I think it really varies by sport. Rugby, for example, is not really governed by the NCAA. They're completely clubbed throughout the country. So they don't have the rules and regulation that the NCAA other sports have. So it's an interesting model. I've always done a lot of research on the pay for play for athletes, which obviously has been a big thing the past 6 months in coming from the Senate ruling. So there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to discuss about the NCAA. And I think COVID may be a chance for some of these big conferences and these schools to say, hey, we've had enough.
That's a groundbreaking if that happens. Frankly, I would be happy to see that happen. But it seems like the NCAA has this death grip over these colleges, and they're making a lot of money from these colleges, the Power Five conferences, and they're making millions off these conferences. So for them to break away, it's almost like having half the football NFL break away from the NFL, or half the Major League Baseball teams break away and just form their own conference.
Imagine having March Madness with no ACC teams or no Big Ten teams.
Who's going to spend $1,000 on a ticket? Who's going to get on a plane and travel there? And frankly, who's going to watch it? And if nobody's watching it, who's going to pay the networks for broadcasting it? All right, hey, Christine, things are happening, and I think they're happening for the better. It's hard, it's tough, there's pain everywhere that everyone's feeling, and I'm not talking about even outside of college and outside of sports because that's enormous. But in this NCAA, this college situation right now, you and I, we've been working with athletes for so long, but we have so many athletes from the last couple of years that we've worked with that are in college right now and getting the rug pulled right out from underneath them, right? And you and I feel horrible for them, but probably if I was to think ahead 5 or 6 or 7 years, I would say to parents of fifth and sixth graders that there's a lot more hope ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, college sports is still strong and it's going to be resilient and they're going to get over, the whole COVID as much as we are as a community. And a lot of times, as we've seen with the NWSL and the teams that have started playing, we're excited to watch sports again. Finally, like we haven't been able to watch sports for 3 months, and now we're finally excited, and just to be able to watch it. And you'll see, like sports sometimes changes a country's thinking and the camaraderie between everybody.
It is no matter what, I don't care what anybody says about the division of things going on in the country today. One thing, there's no division when it comes to sports. I mean, sports are a part of our culture. And I do understand the argument about essential or non-essential, whether it's an essential activity on a sports campus. But you can't take sports out of our young people's lives. This is where there's a lot of spirit and enthusiasm and teamwork and leadership, a lot of physical training going on. It's just such a big deal in our culture. Can't just get rid of it that easy. So good. I'm glad to hear you think that the world of college sports will be around for a long time and probably thrive again one day, but maybe it might not include the NCAA like it does today. And if that's the end result, then I'll be happy about that. All right. All right. So let's think about now the coaches. We talked about before about coaches are now, you mentioned, are now working in admissions office. So I have athletes, so do you, that we work with, and we want these athletes to communicate with coaches, send them emails, things like that. But kids will tell me, well, the coach really isn't responding to me anymore. I go, well, they have a lot of concerns right now, and you're not one of them. So with all these cancellations, what is going on in their mindset?
So I think it's important to realize that the student athlete now, the high school players looking to play, these coaches are doing more work than they ever have done before with all of this because they're trying to balance their players basically individually through virtual meetings, then virtually team meetings. Then you're setting up for a season, but then maybe non-conference just got canceled. So then you have to change all that. Then conference gets canceled. Now you have to change all that. So the coaches I talked to, they all said the same thing. You have to be patient with them. Reach out to them, create a good relationship with them, and keep following up with them. Send them your academic updates. Send them some film so they can watch. You just have to realize they are so swamped right now. But I think as things come about and there's final decisions being made, they're then going to be able to turn and look at those recruits.
So do you feel that they have a little sense of assurance that their job is not in jeopardy?
I would think so. Just because right now most of the schools are just postponing it to the spring. So again, if they're going to use those coaches as admissions counselors, they're going to want them to bring in their players in hopes that there's a spring season.
All right. Now, in the last 4 months, we got hit by COVID-19, and lucky for me, I've been doing Zoom calls and webinars for several years, but not the general public has been. And in fact, one of my favorite people, Mr. Reinhardt, right here, probably never did Zoom in his life, and all of a sudden he does radio interviews, and all of a sudden he's doing radio interviews on Zoom. So so that was a nice new thing for Dan, and so we've all become a little bit more accustomed to Zoom, and if we can do everything on Zoom or at least virtual, are we going to start doing ID camps and showcases on Zoom?
Yeah, so for my November ID clinic, which would be my next one, we're part CFC Park uses what's called Live Barn, and so it's actually video that it'll actually film everything. So now what I'll be able to do is give the coaches a free link so then they can go and watch that player. They're not necessarily going to sit there and watch the whole game unless a player says, hey, by the way, I just went to the #1 soccer camp showcase. I was number 22 there. Can you take a look? And then just the way my showcases are, I mean, we have some of the best kids throughout New England, New York, New Jersey come and compete. So now the coaches can actually see them against a higher level rather than like, a high school where some high school players are kind of low level and some are high level. These are all high level kids.
And of course, I've had the honor to speak at several of your events. Some of them are in the winter time. A couple of times we've had some bad weather. Do you feel like you can still have a greater outreach to coaches now using this new technology?
Yeah, I think so. Whereas a lot of coaches before really wanted to focus on live, seeing them live. Now they're getting used to watching them on video. Division I is still in a dead period to August 31st. So no matter what happens, a coach can't go out and watch someone even if they are playing live. So I think using Live Barn, using the video, and sending to the coaches, where I usually get between 20 and 25 coaches there. Now what happens is maybe I can get some coaches from California, from Arizona, from Texas, and use my contacts that way and say, hey, I know you're not going to be able to make it. You're not going to fly in from Texas, but here's the free link. Come check this out. And if a player has reached out to that coach, most definitely, I guarantee you they're going to watch.
So that is how colleges are going to grow their own business if they have the right technology, because a school that might have 10,000 students today, one day, let's say 5 years from now, they might have 50% live and 50% online. They'll be able to have 20,000 students. That's how you can leverage technology. It sounds like, Christine, you can do the same thing. And I think that when coaches get used to that technology, they're going to be less inclined to get in the car and drive a couple hundred miles to see somebody live if they can watch them live on video. What do you think? Or you think they'll still want to make the drive and see and be there live?
As long as it's not a dead period, then I think the coaches will still show.
Okay.
I do feed them breakfast and lunch, so they definitely show for that. But yeah, there is still something about seeing players live, of course. You can just kind of tell, and you can hear and just see more than you could just from a video.
And over the years, I mean, coaches all over the country, and you said in the beginning, it's like the soccer world's kind of a small little world that people know each other, right? And so getting together at your events, I always see coaches greeting everybody else, the other coaches. They're all happy to see each other, aren't they?
Yeah. So yeah, it's my little circle. A lot of them, we've played together if they were my teammates, or I've coached with them, or coached against them. The soccer world is so small. It is so small. And that's why it's so important. If you're a student athlete now, a high school student athlete, you have to remember maybe there's only one coach watching you, but that coach is then going to tell 10 other coaches. So if you're one of those players, who throws a fit or, is getting red carded, that sort of thing, it travels very fast.
Travels fast. Good behavior travels fast, and bad behavior travels fast. I think that we've all can relate to that. All right, good. We're going to shift in just a moment. For the guests, feel free to go into the chat box, and if you have a question for Christine, type it in the chat box. If you have a question for me, type it in the chat box. I'm going to visit the chat box in just a minute to see what questions come in. So we welcome your questions. We're going to wrap up in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to give Christine a few minutes here to actually talk about the event coming up. So can you please share with us your plans for this event?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, like I said, we're in Division I dead period right now, meaning Division I coaches cannot go out and watch a player live. It's set right now for August, end of August, but it's probably going to get suspended and pushed back to September, maybe even October. So we're hoping by November. Usually I get about 20 to 25 coaches, Division I, Division II, Division III. I even get prep schools that come and play. It's a great showcase because what we do is we play small-sided. And part of number one soccer camps, Dr. Joe's theory is everything small-sided. You're getting lots of touches on the ball, lots of chances to show off your skills. If you're a goalkeeper, you're getting tons of shots at you. If you're a forward or a field player, you're able to get lots of shots off. So it's just a great way to just be able to show yourself off to these coaches.
All right, and I was just thinking, while it's always a great event, so I'm sure this will be awesome. Hey, for the guests, unmute yourself. Feel free to unmute yourself. And Dr. Dan or Mr. Reinhardt, any of you out there would, if you'd like to ask us a question, then chime in and ask Christine a question.
You want to go first, Dan? I'll go first. Hi, Christine. I'm Dan Schaefer. My company's Peak Performance Strategies. I work on mind game strategies for student athletes, professional athletes. What I'm working with now is the trifecta that parents face when kids are going to school: on-field performance, academic excellence, and off-field behavior. I deal with the last two. The coaches take care of the first one, but it's to help kids to look at where they're going and getting into school and planning what they need to do. But in this whole scenario, I'd love to talk to you offline about some of this stuff because it gives kids an edge. And that's what I'm working with now. Yeah, I worked with the Metro Stars before they became the Red Bulls for a particular situation they were dealing with. I did a soccer video for goaltenders from Fairfield University called The Top 2 Inches. So it was just very interesting stuff, you know. But I think that giving kids a competitive edge is important. And what I have found in my own family with my kids who are involved in a variety of sports is that the competitive nature of college sports has always added to their job interviews. You know, where they would say, you know, in this business, in trading, for example, you know, when people get knocked down, they have to get back up. And they know that the college athlete who's competitive will always get back up. So whether it's something hidden in the interview and where you're going to go with a future and a career, I found it to be critical.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think athletics, no matter what age, is unbelievable. You know, we start at 2 years of age now at the CFC Arena, and it's amazing how much better, and I don't necessarily mean at soccer, but the social skills from a 2-year-old after a month is unbelievable. And then you just translate that into the college game, even the professional game. Like you said, you were working with the MLS teams. A lot of them have their own sports psychologists. It is so important to be focused and your mind right.
Right.
Hey, thanks, Dan. And Mr. Reinhardt, you have any thoughts you'd like to share or questions for Christine?
Well, just to kind of go along with Dan Schaefer. Christine, I did an interview last week with 2 local kids in the Hudson Valley, New York area. One is on the Chicago Cubs 40-man roster, and the other is a minor leaguer with the Baltimore Orioles. And I noticed in the interview they're in limbo right now. You know, their careers. One is close to 25 as a baseball player. He's getting kind of older. The other kid's only 23, 24, so he's figuring he'll be okay. But they don't really know when things are going to start. And my question to you is, obviously yourself and coaches, there's some negativity out there because you've got high school students really don't know if they're going to have a career with what's going on right now, because we're trying to give direction, but it's difficult. How do you think that'll be handled just to keep student athletes up? Because it is a trying time right now.
Yeah, it really, I think this will prove people's intrinsic motivation, whether you are a high school athlete or even the pro athletes. I was following the English Premier League. You know, who comes back fit, who comes back in shape, and who maybe, you know, struggled without being in that team setting. So I think with college, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to see those players that have been going crazy, have been training hard, you know, by themselves or playing one-on-one versus one other, versus the people who are like, oh, you know, well, who knows? So you always want to be prepared for any situation, as you guys know. So if I was, you know, in this situation, if I was a high school athlete right now and I wanted to play in college, I'd probably be training like it was preseason, even though I don't even know when my season, you know, will happen.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. Hey, Dan. Hey, Mr. Daly, I see Mr. Daly put a question in the chat box. Bill, can you unmute yourself and ask it yourself?
Yeah, no worries. Christine, just a quick question. What's the easiest way, I'll ask it two different ways, but what's the easiest way to determine where your child fits in the world of collegiate soccer? I've heard several times from several different coaches, club, high school, whatever, that there's a place for everybody. However, when we come to your showcase, for example, how do we know we're barking up the wrong tree if we're going after a Big East D1 program versus a D2 program or a D3 program? How does that shake itself out?
Yeah, so as you know, I have Division I, Division II, Division III there. The best thing is, you know, I would talk to their club coach if they have experience with the college game. And the other thing, once they become, so it's tricky because the NCAA changed their rules on us a little bit. So now you can't get a response from a coach until your junior year, until you're going into your junior year, where it used to be earlier. So now a lot of it is going to be, you have to wait until junior year until you hear back from the coach. I had a player and she really, really wanted to play Division I, and the coaches just weren't getting back to her. And I said, you know what? This is your sign. You are not at this level. Let's focus on Division II. You know, and eventually she wound up playing at Division III and loves where she is.
Hey, Christine, just because Mr. Daly has a tremendous young daughter who's a goaltender, how does the world of soccer evaluate goaltenders?
I think for goalkeepers, it is so important, and now in the COVID time that we're dealing with highlights and videos, I think the first 5 minutes you create a highlight video, and obviously it's probably going to be from past games, maybe even last year. If you're a goalkeeper, I would definitely have training. Coaches want to see the footwork, they want to see your movement, they want to see your diving, they want to see your boxing, those type of things. And then what I would do is I'd put in a good half that you had last year, like an actual game. And that way the coaches can also see your mistakes as well. They can see where you need to learn.
And how important is it for the level of club? So we work with soccer players, and a lot of parents they struggle over deciding, do they stay more local with a club that might not be as good, or do they travel 30 or 40 miles every day to a better club? How important is the level of the club?
My bottom line on it, and this is if you have an 8-year-old or an 18-year-old, I would go where he or she likes the coach. That's the bottom line. Because even if it's a quality club and your son or daughter does not like the coach, it's going to be miserable, absolutely miserable. You know, I work for CFC, and we have maybe 40 college coaches within our ranks. And you know, some players relate differently to college coaches, and it's important that they realize, or they relate differently to each coach. So it's important that they realize, hey, I don't like the coach that's yelling and screaming at me. I want someone to coddle me. But then there's some athletes who are like, I want the coach to yell and scream at me. So every player has to kind of figure out what they like as a coach. They should choose that club based on the coach they like, and then that should also go into their college choice as well.
So even though they've, let's say, played since they were 5 years old, let's just say they're now 15 or 16, they've played for a lot of coaches. They probably have a good sense of who the coaches are they liked and who they didn't like. But do you think that they're taking that into consideration when they start to think about clubs, much less college?
Oh, they 100% should be.
They should be.
I don't know if they are or not, but you see so many players that just quit and they're quality players, and you're like, you know what? Maybe if this person did have a different coach. And I'm not saying that, again, every coach is not perfect for every player. But it's important, especially if you're looking at college and you're going to be spending 4 years with this coach, unlimited hours, bus trips, and you name it. And this is basically going to be your parent away from home. You want to obviously like them and get along with them. And you want to have that motivation to work hard and be the best for that coach.
I personally think it's one of the most valuable components of college success and satisfaction is the relationship between the athlete and the coach.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, they are the ones taking care of you and looking after you when your parents aren't there.
Yeah, my son, who was a little bit of a challenge, he was a great athlete, and he was a tremendous player, but he was a little bit of an emotional challenge. He had to have a coach that could mentor him and sit him down and spend time with him and try to understand him. And if he had a coach that was just hard-lined about things, it wasn't going to work.
Yeah, and every coach is different and every player is different.
All right. We're going to wrap up in a minute unless somebody else has any questions. Would anybody like to chime in with a question? Otherwise, this is really fun. I love this. I love these kind of talks. Christine, you were fabulous with your insight.
So much better on camera now. It's now no problem.
Good.
Christine, could you address sports agents in connection with professional soccer? You have any sports agents come into the colleges looking at your players?
For soccer, I mean, I don't know. Soccer is different than other sports.
Okay.
I'm not even sure like exactly how to answer that because it's not like basketball, right? The sports agents for soccer, they're not making the millions of dollars like an NFL or future NBA will.
I was brought into hockey by sports agents to deal with terrible coaches and parents in their relationship with terrible coaches. So I wondered how much of that played in, but it doesn't fit in with the soccer piece.
Yeah, soccer is just a little different, just the way it's structured. It's kind of all over the place. And, the top players, we obviously have MLS, been around for 25 years. And now they're just developing the academies, the MLS academies for them to go to. So,
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
But on that point, Dan, in some sports like football and basketball and baseball, there's a path to the professional ranks.
Right.
But most college athletics don't have a path to professional ranks. And one of them that saddens me is softball does not have a real path to professional ranks. Maybe soccer does. I don't think lacrosse really does. So a lot of athletes know that the end game is college, right?
Right.
And then soccer, as far as soccer, you can go overseas, male or female, and play. Same thing, with basketball. If the guys don't make the NBA, a lot of times they'll go overseas and play in those leagues and come back to the G League or whatnot.
That's a good point. There are a lot of leagues around the world. All right, great. Hey, let's call it a wrap. It's a fun night. If everybody's all set, then I'm all set. I'm going to stop the recording down here real quick. And
thanks for putting this on. This was a great program.
Whoops. I just hold on a second.